You can buy the best technology in the world and still end up with a system no one actually uses. Welcome to the Marquis Masters podcast. I'm Nick Franck. Today, I'm joined by Jason Mazzoni, co-founder and COO of XaCube, a consultancy focused on helping organizations actually get value for the technology they invest in. Because here's the reality. Companies are running hundreds of tools, platforms, and systems, but very few of them are working the way they're supposed to. Jason breaks down why that happens, where AI fits into the equation, and how businesses can move from simply implementing technology to actually making it work for their people. We also get into his time in the military and how that shaped his leadership style, what ownership really looks like in practice, and why the right relationships can accelerate your career faster than anything else. Let's get into it. I'm excited to welcome Jason Mazzoni to the Marquis Masters podcast. He is the co-founder and COO of XaCube. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well, Nick. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive into XaCube. So let's just start. What is the mission?
Yeah, so at XaCube, we're an experience platform consultancy. So our mission is to help organizations get real value from their enterprise technology by improving how people interact with that technology. Specifically, that's how customers buy, how partners sell, and how employees get work done. So if you look at any industry, and this is only going to become more and more of a thing as time goes on here, you're going to find that everyone is running a very complex stack of enterprise platforms. CRMs, HCMs, PRMs, throw the entire alphabet at that. And while there's nothing wrong with any of these technologies, there are some issues with how people actually use it. Your workflows are outdated. Each platform operates in isolation. And once they've been implemented, no one owns that experience across all of your systems. So what happens is that these technologies get implemented, but they rarely transform the business or deliver the business outcomes that we expect. So at XaCube, to solve this, we've partnered with leading enterprise platforms across customer, partner, and employee experience, and we focus on what happens after the enterprise software gets implemented. So on any given day, you can find our teams improving how our clients engage, support, and retain their customers. You can find us enabling more effective channel and ecosystem collaboration for their partners, and making internal systems more usable and productive for their employees. So bottom line here is that everything we do is tied to one thing, making sure that the technology delivers the business outcomes that our clients bought it for.
Yeah, I think there's enough of us that have worked for large organizations that have said, hey, we're bringing in this new tech. It's going to change everything that we're doing. And then it gets out of the box and then no one either uses it or it doesn't live up to the expectations for what it is, or the new tech doesn't talk to the old tech and this tool doesn't talk to this tool. And it just becomes a giant a mess. And then it all just gets put on the back burner and people just keep doing the things that they had always been doing the least efficient way possible.
That's it. And, depending on what source you go to, you'll see things from some enterprises use, 100 or so applications all the way up to in the 900,000 kind of count. So, you take that and, one of the things you mentioned there was the people just continue to do things the way they have been. Well, as we introduce AI to this and AI agents, they can't just make stuff up or use all of that tribal knowledge that employees have had for a long time. You really have to pay attention to how the work gets done with all of these applications, or you won't be successful.
Yeah. Have you found is that one of the bigger challenges is a kind of overcoming with AI now being way more integrated into a lot of these systems, that the old guard is struggling to adapt to that? Is that one of the bigger challenges you're seeing on that day-to-day basis of trying to implement these technologies?
I wouldn't say it's so much like an old guard struggling to come into new technology so much as it is, you have a lot of different forms of AI at this point. Each one of your enterprise software applications, they have their own AI, and it works fantastic within that application. And sure, there are APIs to other things and integrations and whatnot, but it was designed to operate within that parameter. And then you have agents that can work across different platforms and get things done, but they all rely on the underlying data that you've given them. And I'll give you an example. We're working on an AI chatbot, which is one of the less smart versions of AI for a client of ours. And we got in there and they're saying, I get all these weird responses for our customers. We thought that this was going to be super easy, and we take a look at it, and they had 1,300 intent signals that had been generated by this thing, but is just a map of, if a person says this in the chat, you have to go to this point to reference the appropriate data. And if you don't have that right, it's not even looking at the right thing. So, what it is, I think, is bringing up the underlying issues in a business, those workflows that are outdated, that people just know I work around this thing, or someone says something really weird in the chat. Well, I kind of get the gist of what they're going for. I can redirect them. AI doesn't have that real flexibility or capability yet. So it's only as good as the inputs that you have for it.
Right. And I think a lot, or also AI is pulling from whatever information it can, right? So that blog that is on your website that's 6 years old, that might have outdated data, it's pulling from that in the chatbot, right? And so like, if there's something from your organization that's not there anymore, but the blog is still on your website, the chatbot could pull from that as like, oh, this is information. And so I could see your client maybe having that kind of issue with that. I feel like you and I could probably talk about AI for a long time, but let's bring it back to XaCube and the services that y'all provide to the clients, and how you feel like you differentiate yourself from other consultants in the space.
Yeah, so for our services, we have services that kind of fall into two categories. So I'll talk about those, and then I'll talk about what I think separates us. First, we've aligned our core services to the full life cycle of an enterprise platform in what we call our digital transformation 4E framework. The first is engage, where we drive immediate value from new technology. So we get you started, make sure that you're getting that value straight out of the gate. Then we move into expand, where we scale across teams, use cases, processes, and we continue to build on what we've developed. Up to empower, where we're looking at sustained enterprise-wide success, governance, all of the things you need to do to really look at your experience as a center of excellence and a value add to your organization. Now, not every life cycle follows the ideal path. So we also have our Elevate package, where we come in, restore and reinvigorate an underperforming program where, hey, maybe we've tried this before, but the employees that we had took off, got promoted, aren't in this role anymore, and we really need some help to keep things moving. The other category is we've built targeted solutions for known friction points. So these are things like SAP Enable Now is going to be transitioned to WalkMe and Learning Arc. This is something that our clients have a specific need for, that we know is going to be a big thing here in the next year. And we want to make sure that we handle those friction points to make that experience a positive one. So what really separates us, though, is we don't measure success by just delivering scope. It's not I have done all of the checks in the boxes that we expected to do. We stick around and make sure to measure success through the outcomes that are delivered. So every engagement we have starts with value alignment. And that's where we sit with our clients and our partners, and we define what business metrics matter. And we stay accountable to affecting those throughout the life of the engagement. Most firms will stop at scope, and we focus on driving that long-term business value.
Have you ever wondered how some people's stories live on, not just through their work, but through history itself? For nearly 130 years, Marquis Who's Who has been documenting the lives of leaders, innovators, and changemakers across every profession. From CEOs and scientists to artists and educators, Marquis has captured the stories behind success, the people who define our times. Being listed in Marquis Who's Who isn't just recognition, it's taking control of your personal brand and using it to create a meaningful and impactful legacy. It's a record of your life's work, preserved, published, and accessible to generations who will study, research, and be inspired by your contribution. If you've built something meaningful and you've made an impact in your field or community, this is how you ensure your story is told and your personal brand is maintained accurately with integrity. Visit marquiswho'swho.com to learn more about how you or someone you admire can be featured, because history remembers those who take the time to record it.
You touched on how some clients you work with have, hundreds of technology that they're using. Maybe it's new, maybe it's old, maybe some talk to each other, some don't. So how does the work you do help people when they're trying to engage with these interactions with technology, some that maybe haven't always talked to each other, some that's new that might be frustrating? I think we've all tried to use new tech that maybe it doesn't connect with each other and you just get frustrated and you give up. And so how do you help people just improve those interactions to make their experience better?
Yeah, so simply put is we focus on those friction points. So that's between people or AI agents, right? It's the same in both mechanisms. So between them and the enterprise technologies that you rely on. So, what you'll see, as we go into our different engagements is a lot of organizations still operate in silos. So your customers get inconsistent results depending on where they get their answers from. Your partners struggle to engage efficiently, and employees spend way too much time navigating through systems and navigating around helping customers and partners get answers that they need instead of actually doing their meaningful work. And so we fix that by connecting and simplifying that experience across those systems. Streamline workflows, reduce complexity, and ultimately it just makes that technology easier to use. At the end of the day, this isn't about improving any of this technology. It's about building better business outcomes by how we use that technology.
Yeah, I love that. I think, it is such a pain point for a lot, of individuals trying to learn these new technologies and make them talk to each other is always a hard part. There's a lot of cool new tools. There's a lot of cool tools out there, but getting them to actually engage the way we want them to is a lot of times a pain point. Jason, I want to shift up a little bit. Over your head, there's a bunch of military medals behind you, and you are a graduate of the Naval Academy. When you're thinking of building your business, when you think about your career, what role do you think the military service has played in your life, in your success, and in building this business?
Military service was the foundation of my professional career, and I have several takeaways from that have influenced most of how I approach things today. But the three big ones that come to mind are, first, a sense of ownership. In military effort, there are no rewards for effort. Effort is expected. The results are demanded. And, the other piece of that is the importance of a team. You can't be successful in a bubble. And in order to be successful, you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish. So, you take all of those things together, and I think that is really strong in business applications. The other thing that I really took away is what it means, and more importantly, what it costs to lead. A lot of times in the military, you hear a lot of the enlisted ranks say things like, "Don't call me sir, I work for a living." And while we all get a good chuckle out of that, the things that people don't see when it comes to leadership is you don't see that you're the first one there. You're the last one to leave. anytime something's gone wrong, you're right there understanding what the problem is, and more importantly, what help does the team need in order to be successful? And you're the one that goes and gets that help and makes sure that the team is working the way that it should. So, it was a big part of my foundational years of my career, and it's something that I've continued to carry through today and will for a very long time.
You talked about team and you talked about ownership. How do you plan to ensure that your business remains veteran-owned, operated within that kind of scope?
Yeah, it's something that we take seriously, and it's been intentionally built into how we've structured our business and how we grow our business. Obviously, that starts at maintaining veteran ownership at the leadership level, but more important than that is maintaining a pipeline of veteran talent that will develop into leadership within the company. So we actively look to hire and develop veterans, and has nothing to do with the designation and everything to do with the mindset that I was just talking about. Disciplined, accountable, mission-focused, and we want to embed that into not only the culture, but the leadership structure, and make sure that we sustain that at scale as we continue to grow.
Is there any defining traits that you found within good leaders, of people that you've interviewed with, worked with in the past, anything like that?
It's a great question. I would say that the biggest thing that I look for is the ownership piece. Because if you have that ownership, that I'll call it extreme ownership, I've seen that a few places, all of the other things will fall in line. You'll take the time to understand the role, you'll take the time to understand what success looks like, and you'll ensure that everyone understands that goal and is aligned to it. If that piece is missing, that's not something that I can teach.
Yeah, that's great. Ownership is such a valuable asset to have, and a lot of people not a lot of people. Some people want to be told what to do and are fine with that, and there are other people that are like, no, I'm just going to take charge and do it. I'm going to own this. I'm going to follow through with what I say I'm going to do, and it is such a valuable trait to have within leaders. Taking a little bit of a turn here, when I was going through your bio and I was kind of looking through the notes, I noticed there's a couple similarities between the two of us. One of them is amateur radio, and it's one of your hobbies, and I'm really curious where that started and where your interest and passion for that came from.
Yeah, so it started in 2012 for me. So my grandfather unfortunately passed away in 2012, and it took my parents and I a little bit before we went through his effects. And some of the things in there were his old radios and his logbooks. And he had a long-term radio pen pal in Germany in his logbook from 30 years ago. And it was just really interesting. And so we tried to get his old equipment up and working, took it to a few places, was better to just scrap it and start over, unfortunately. But my mom and I started getting into amateur radio from there. And once we did get our licenses, she was actually able to apply to get his call sign taken over as hers. So it was really special.
That's really cool. When you're not doing that, how else do you spend your free time?
Yeah, I enjoy being outside. When I was seaside for the majority of my life, I'm big into sailing. Here in Raleigh, I play a bit more golf. I'm very fortunate. My wife also likes to play golf, so I get to spend a bit more time on the course than most. And yeah, really, I like any sort of puzzle, something that I can solve. Escape rooms, the technical aspect of amateur radio, all of those are a lot of fun.
Yeah. I found that my wife likes riding on the cart with me. She'll read a book. She hasn't quite found the love for golfing yet. But she has found a love for being outside on a nice day, reading a book next to me while I play. That's been a lot of fun. Maybe one day she'll actually get into playing though.
Yeah, you said love for golf. I think that's a pretty strong word for that relationship, but we'll take it for what it is.
It's golf is that love hate, right? You hate it for the majority of the day, and then inevitably you have a really great 18th hole, and you're like, gosh, this is a lot of fun, and you just kind of forget about everything else that happened throughout the day.
Mm-hmm. Yep, every time, every day.
It's just destiny how that works out. Speaking of, you're in the Raleigh area and you've obviously served. And so giving back is something that's clearly very, very important to you. And so now in this next stage of your life, how do you give back to the community and how important is that for you?
It's very important, and not just for me personally, but that's something that we put a lot of focus on at the company, where we give all of our employees a volunteer day per quarter that they're very strongly encouraged to use at the charity of their choice. For me, mine is the Foundation of Hope here in Raleigh. Their mission is to conquer mental illness by investing in groundbreaking scientific research around mental health initiatives. So it's essentially, they provide seed grants to medical research that ultimately leads to real fully granted and funded research. They've been around since 1984, and in that time they've awarded 210 research seed grants, and that's been leveraged to raise over $272 million in full research grants. So it's really important. Everyone, I think, has been affected by a mental health issue in some way, shape, or form. To the tune of 1 in 5 American adults live with a mental illness. And a little bit closer to home, almost 43,000 Americans commit suicide every year. And a big part of that are the 22 veterans per day. So that's something that's close to home, and it's a great charity. If you're in the Raleigh area, their big flagship event is the Walk for Hope. It's on October 11th this year. Come on out. I'd love to see you there.
That's awesome. And if someone would come, if you could get anyone to come to the walk, right, or come to Raleigh and have lunch with you for the day, whether they're the past, they're the present, who would it be?
Oh man, you say one. I can't give you one. I'll give you 3. I have to put all of these out there. So throughout my life and my career, I've had 2 invisible mentors. The first is Jimmy Buffett. And if you go back and you watch our home videos from even before I was born, you can hear Jimmy's music in the background. And his music, books, and more importantly, his stories have shaped so much of how I view the world, that I would love to have had the chance to meet him. The other is Admiral James Stavridis. So one of the first things as a surface warfare officer you do is you learn to handle the ship on the bridge. And I remember very distinctively, one of the first things I had in my hand was his professional paper on the ship handling characteristics of the Arleigh Burke class destroyer that he wrote in the early 90s when he was a commander and the commanding officer of one of the first Arleigh Burkes. And what struck me was how his writing was curious and methodical at the same time. And I've always kept up with his writing, his books, all that thing. And oddly enough, he's a partner at the Carlyle Group. My wife also works at the Carlyle Group and with all of their events. And I still haven't met him. So Admiral, let me know. I'd love to meet you for lunch. And then the third, I have to put this out here, complete long shot, but I do enjoy a round of golf. I would love to play a round of golf with John Daly. I don't think there's a golfer out there that would not have him as part of their dream foursome. So it has to be the honorable mention.
the fun you would have on a golf course with John Daly and the stories you would hear would be incredible. I love that. I think he would be part of my dream foursome as well. I feel like he's just the wild card of the group that just would bring the character, you know?
Definitely the most relatable professional,
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I agree. Jason, when you think back to your 17, 18-year-old self, and if you could go back to that version of you, do you think you would tell them, hey, do the same things, it all it all works out the way it's meant to be? Or do you think there's any different choices along the way that you think you would have made?
I've had my fair share of significant course changes throughout my career. You know, you look at military service, and as a surface warfare officer, I had many different roles within that. Reserve duty. I was fortunate in my military career that I had several commanding officers that knew better for me than I knew for myself, and they were able to steer me in the right direction. Then, technology, consulting, now running my own business. I wouldn't change any of it. Every step of the way, it's always pushed me to be something greater than I could have been before. And as long as each step makes that happen, I don't think that there's a wrong answer.
Yeah. And then throughout the course of your career, through your life, whether it was military, business, personal, is there a specific lesson that you've learned that you think really stands out as being like a core lesson that's made you into who you are today?
Yeah, most certainly. Apply to be in rooms that you don't yet belong in. You can spend your entire career gaining as much knowledge and information as you can, but relationships will compound faster than anything else will. It only takes one good connection to open doors that would take you a decade to do on your own. So always ask. Worst cases, people say no, but don't know till you ask.
I love that. I 100% agree. And it's such like a valuable thing that, you don't have to do it alone. And the worst that can happen is they say no, right? The best case is just so much better than what that worst case can possibly be. Jason, before I let you go, what does being a Marquis Who's Who listee mean to you?
Really, it is an absolute privilege. When I say apply to be in rooms that you don't yet belong in, that was absolutely one of those instances for me. To be among the listees that have been mentioned over the last 125 plus years in Marquis Who's Who is really an honor. And what I hope it shows is it's not just a testament to me. It's all of the people that have mentored me along the way, everyone that I've worked with, everyone that has worked for me. All of that has influenced who I am and how I approach business and everything that has culminated in being one of these listees. So it really is a privilege.
So, well, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time and talking with me today. And if either one of us is able to connect with John Daly, let's make a pact. We'll talk to each other so we can get in on this golf foursome together.
Perfect. That's a deal.
Awesome. Well, hey, if this conversation resonated with you, consider sharing with someone who's leading teams and navigating operations. We're going to make technology feel a little more human and make that connection a little bit better. To hear more conversations like this with leaders and founders like Jason, be sure to visit marquiswhoswho.com and subscribe to the Marquis Masters podcast wherever you're listening. And of course, if you enjoy the episode, leave a review, make it more discoverable for other people to find. Once again, thank you so much to Jason Mazzoni for joining me. I'm Nick Franck, and we'll catch you for the next Marquis Masters podcast.